Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is my September recap, what I've read last month. This is my second try. I filmed it completely yesterday, but somehow the video doesn't want to go on my PC. So I'm gonna try again and hopefully this one works. Also, I'm sitting on my floor right now because my dog is sitting on my chair and I don't want to move him out of it, so hopefully this setting is fine. You're just gonna see a little bit of the lower parts of my shelves. I have my reading stats here. I'm journaling my reading, and so I write it all down here. And yeah, my reading didn't go as planned last month. I've only read 3 of the 7 books I wanted to read on my TBR, and in the whole I only read 9 books last month, which isn't the best, especially because I think 4 were graphic novels that were really short. So yeah, not the best reading months I've had. I bought 3 books last month, read 9, which is fine. It's actually quite a good ratio, I think. And yeah, these are the general stats. Not the best month. I think it's the worst month I've had this year. But October is starting really great, so my October recap will probably be a lot better, and there will be more books in it. So the first book I've read last month was Der Schrecksmeister by Walter Mörs. It's a German author. I didn't know anything about the book going into it, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. It was a nice read. The book is mainly about a cat, or a cat-like creature, which is called, in Germany a cat is a Katze, and it's called a Kratze, with like an extra R in it. And so I think in English it would probably be a krat. So it's a really, really intelligent cat that has a great memory, and if you tell it something, it will remember it. And its owner dies, and so the cat lands on the street, and it's starving, and the Schrecksmeister comes by with like a really scary person in that region who handles the Schrecksen. And he makes a deal with the cat because he's an alchemist and he wants the essence of the cat. And so he makes a deal that he will feed the cat for a month, and then he has the right to kill the cat and get its essence. And the book is pretty much the adventure the cat has whilst living with the Schrecksmeister, and it was great. Really funny, mixed with a little bit of horror. A book that is also for children, so it's not like gory horror or anything, but it has parts of it that are more on horror basis. And yeah, a lot of fantasy aspects in this one. I love his other books as well. I've read a few of them, starting to get a little bit more. And yeah, you can get these in English, so I would recommend picking them up. The whole world and the series is called Zemonian, so yeah, look it up if you want. It's a really nice fantasy world. Also, the 13.5 Lives of Captain Bluebeard is in the same universe, from the same author. That is probably one of his more out there books. Then the second book I read last month was my Terry Pratchett read, because I'm reading through Terry Pratchett's books in reading order, and this is Thief of Time. It's in the Death collection, my favorite collection. The main character is Susan, the granddaughter of Death, and Death is also there, the Rats of Death are there. And yeah, somebody tries to make time stop and steal it, and Susan and a few other characters try to stop that from happening, and it's really funny. It's a really great adventure, and I loved it. After pretty much hating the book before that, which was one of the Industrial Revolution ones, I'm really glad to be back loving them, and I gave it 4 stars as well. Because there's always a little bit of space to get through Good Omen levels. But yeah, it's a really nice one. I think it's the 25th one I've read now, which is kind of wild to think that I've read 25 Terry Pratchett books. But yeah, I'm getting through them. Slowly, one book at a time, which is nice. And then, the next book, I will put the cover here. It's an audiobook I've listened to, which is Murder's Easy by Agatha Christie. Can't tell you anything about the story because it just didn't stick at all. I have my trouble with reading or listening to Agatha Christie. I've listened to them through my library because I thought I'd try them out before buying them, and yeah, I won't be buying them. I gave it 3 stars pretty much because they're not bad books. I just don't think that they're really great mysteries. I think they're pretty obvious after you've read a few. Because at least for the ones I've read, just the whole way the story is built is always the same. It's just, I don't know. I think they're fine. I don't mind listening to them. They're short. They're good for something in between other books. But I'm also not obsessed with them. I wouldn't particularly recommend them. So yeah, 3 stars for her. I will probably continue listening to them every now and then just to get through them, because I do like to be able to say like I've read the author, especially for authors that are really popular or really known. So yeah, but it's not my favorite, and I wouldn't recommend. There are so many better mystery authors out there, so yeah. Then the next one, my first graphic novel I've read last month as an ebook was The Witcher: A Grain of Truth. This one I gave 4 stars. I don't think the author did it himself, but someone adapted the story. I think it's a short story from one of the first books into graphic novel style, and the art style was really, really nice. The story was fine. Yeah, 4 stars, don't have really much to say about it. Graphic novels for me are kind of hard to rate, simply because everybody likes different art styles, and I think the art style can make or break graphic novel. Despite the story, so yeah. Then now comes probably the most disappointing part of this video, which is Babel. I've read Babel successfully last month. It took me forever, which isn't a good sign, to be honest. I own 2 copies of it because the Illumi Crate and the Fairy Loot had it in their boxes. I got the Fairy Loot adult book-only version and the Illumi Crate box with like everything in it. And so I have 2 really, really pretty editions of this book. And yeah, I didn't like it. I gave it 2 stars, which like I struggled between like 1 and 2 stars, to be honest. I thought it was a fantasy book. And for me personally, there are fantasy aspects in the book, but they feel like an afterthought in a lot of the book. The main story is the story in itself is about Robin, and he's from China, and there comes an Englishman who takes him back to Britain, to England, when his family dies from some kind of illness, and yeah, he takes him back. He gives him an education, and the only thing he says he wants from him is as he works at Babel, the translation institute, and so he goes to the university and is supposed to get his education there. And the whole story is about colonialism and racism, which is a good thing. I think the story in and of itself isn't wrong. For me, the problem is, first of all, I couldn't really get to the main character. He is really indecisive, and at some point I thought the reactions he had just weren't in character, and maybe I just didn't understand him completely, which absolutely fine, that can happen, but kind of annoyed me throughout the story. Also, the story was really, really obvious, and you have footnotes in the text, a lot of footnotes. A lot of the book reads as a history book, to be honest, which is fine. There are lectures in the book at the university, they read like lectures, that is fine. But you have footnotes everywhere who kind of annotate when books are mentioned or people are mentioned, who you know, because they are actually people from the real world that you would know, and the footnote then declares, oh, this one was racist. But you know that from the story in the book. Like, even if you didn't know the person, the dialogue in the book is so obvious that the footnotes just weren't necessary, and I thought they just annoyed me. Because I always had to go down, read the footnote, then think to myself, oh, I already knew that, go back to the book. Isn't my style. Other than that, I thought the writing style was fine. It just, for me, is a historical fiction. For me, it isn't a fantasy book, because the fantasy aspect, as I said, just wasn't really necessary in the book. It didn't have a big role. It just was used to make like the big exit at the end of the book, and that was it. And yeah, sadly I didn't enjoy it. I don't really enjoy historical fiction. For me, if I read books, it's a lot of escapism, which like I do read mysteries and thrillers, which are obviously mostly set in the real world, but they are scenarios that would never happen to me. And if I read fantasy or something like that, I do enjoy fantasy that is more outlandish, isn't really rooted in the real world, and this one was just way too much historical fiction and way too little fantasy. So I do recommend it. If you like historical fiction, read it, absolutely. I think for that it's a really, really good book. But for me, and for my reading taste, it just wasn't it. And so yeah, now I have two really pretty copies of the book in my shelf, which I'm happy that the book is really pretty, so at least I can show it off even if I didn't like it. Now, the next book I've read is Secret Invasion, Inhumans, which like I didn't know existed before. It was recommended to me by my library. I've read it. It's a pretty standard graphic novel. I gave it 3 stars. It's the invasion of some shapeshifters. They go to the Inhumans and invade them and try to kill them all. And yeah, superhero comic, pretty much. The art style was fine. The story was barely there, but it was fine as well, so I gave it 3 stars. Then I did want to read some horror graphic novels while on vacation and just traveling, because we had to use a plane. I live in Germany, we went to France, and so we went by plane, and I read first of all The Bone Arcade, The Passageway. The story, not so good, to be honest. It's about a geologist that is sent to like a small island where there's only a lighthouse, and like an old woman lives there, and he's supposed to look at like a hole in the rocks there, and then the woman turns murdery. That's the story, not much there. The art style was fine. It did convey the horror quite well, which is why I gave it 3 stars, but probably won't continue that one as I didn't think the story gave much, and it's supposed to be book 1 or issue 1 from the series. And yeah, then also it's by Jeff Lemire, and the next one I've read was also by Jeff Lemire, which is Gideon Falls #1, The Black Barn. And this one is about like a mystical black barn that is supposed to bring death, pretty much, and nobody really believes in it, but there's a small town where people tend to die strange ways, or they just vanish, and a few people are Sure, it's this barn thing that is the culprit pretty much, but like nobody really believes them. And yeah, I gave it 3 stars as well. The story was a little bit better than Bone Archive, but it just get better in the next ones, which they are out, so I will probably continue reading this one, because I do think that the story will improve with time, and I really like the art style. It did convey the horror quite well, so yeah, I'm going to read the other ones. 3 stars for a start. It will probably, if the story continues to get better, it will probably be more 4-star, but I think that's only in context with the next ones. And then the last horror graphic novel I've read was The Me You Love in the Dark, which is about an artist that kind of lost her inspiration, and so she rents like a small creepy house in like a village where she wants to like get it back and paint some new pictures so she can put them in her gallery. And her manager is making some, not threats, but he's like, you need to do this now, otherwise I can't work with you anymore and you're gonna end up on the street. And so she goes to this house and there's something haunting the house. And yeah, the answer was really nice. I also gave it 3 stars because the story isn't much, because it doesn't go much more. I mean, it gets gory in the end, but it isn't more story-wise than what I've told you. And so there isn't really much there, to be honest, but the art style was really, really great and it conveyed the horror really, really nicely. So yeah, probably we're gonna look more into graphic novels from the artist, because the story, but the artist was really great, and so I might just look into him and see what he has out there, because I really enjoyed the art. And yeah, that was actually all I've read last month. As I said, it wasn't the greatest reading month. If you know 2 things I would like for you to tell me. First of all, if you know historical fiction with a lot of fantasy in it, it would be great if you could tell me, because I do want to find some kind of historical fiction that I enjoy. I just need a lot of fantasy in it, so it needs to be a really good balance of historical fiction and fantasy. And the second one is, I'm always on the search for horror graphic novels. So if you have some favorites, the one I really, really like, I mean, it's more fantasy than horror, but it's The Sandman. So if you have some kind of recommendations for horror graphic novels that go in the direction of Sandman, that would be great. So yeah, leave those down below. And yeah, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like or subscribe or stuff like that. That would be really, really nice. And yeah, thank you for watching and bye bye!